Welcome to Beyond Bandwidth, Leviton's podcast series where we dive into network technology's hottest topics. I am your host from Leviton Network Solutions, Roy Chamberlain. In episode 7 of our second season, Leviton's Mike Connaughton meets with David Potts, the Director of National Data Center Business at Graybar. Together, they chronicle the current demand to build more AI data centers and the logistics required to do so. From the burden on electrical grid power capacity to the necessity for an extensive range of specialty products and resources being readily available in volumes, the pursuit to construct these technological Goliaths requires organization and planning at the highest level. Listen closely as Mike and David share vital information from their experience.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our latest episode of Beyond Bandwidth. This is Mike Connaughton. I'm a Senior Product Manager at Leviton Network Solutions. And joining me today is David Potts, who's Director of National Data Center Business with Graybar. How are you doing today, David?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thank you very much for having me on today.
All right, not a problem. So before we get started, if you want to take a couple of minutes, introduce yourself, let people know kind of what you do and what brought you here.
Sure. As you stated in the opening, my name is David Potts, and I am the Director of National Data Center Business for Graybar Electric. I've been with Graybar for just about 7 years. Actually, my 7-year anniversary is next week. During that time, I've been a senior outside sales rep, a branch manager, an area manager. My last 2 years were spent as the Director of Comm Data Sales for the Southwest District. And my most recent position is the Director of National Data Center Business, which I was appointed to in March of this year. Prior to that, I spent about 20 years in the contractor and integrator world. I worked for a very large national integrator for about a decade, kind of bookended on either end by smaller regional contractors and integrators before I made the jump to distribution in 2018.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you lending your experience to our podcast here. So obviously this season we're talking about AI. It's a rule that if you're in the fiber world, you have to talk about AI data centers. That's a law written somewhere. From that sense, now you've got a team of people that are looking after the data center space. Presumably you're hearing about AI from your customers as well. Is there, what is it that you're hearing from them? What types of questions, what type of issues are they presenting to you?
So from our standpoint, a lot of the conversations we're having, especially with the owners and operators of multi-tenant data centers, and of course the hyperscalers, the big guys out there in the market, everybody is transitioning a portion of their data center compute space to AI. We do expect an inflection in the near future where capacity will not keep up with the demand as it continues to grow through multiple portions of the industry in the United States. So a lot of things that we're talking about with customers is, of course, trying to find available power from the utility space, trying to find available land to build on that's suitable, and of course, trying not to upset the communities in which they wish to build, where they can find this power and this water and this available real estate.
Yeah, it's an amazing, when you hear their stats or hear people talk about it, it's almost hard to even conceptualize the amount of power, especially in the hyperscale realm. Some of these huge data centers that are building massive AI clusters, the amount of power they use is incredible to a certain extent.
Yeah, I can tell you it became very evident to me, honestly, just about 8 months ago. I was meeting with a major multi-tenant data center company, and a lot of their operations are in Arizona. When we think about Arizona, lots of sunshine, lots of renewable energy, not a huge population outside of the large metro areas of Tucson and Phoenix in the greater Maricopa County area. But you look at the available power from the utilities. What we were told in this meeting with the data center operator was that if you don't have a permit today to connect to the grid before 2027, you will not get one because there's not enough available power to support another major build in that market.
Wow. I've heard bits and pieces of things like that. I mean, the Northern Virginia being the giant of giants of data center spaces. It was a year or two ago, maybe. Was at a conference, and They were saying essentially they're tapped out for a while, and any significant increases, there's a new kind of data center alley going up in Prince George County over in Maryland. So kind of as the crow flies, essentially across the street.
Yeah.
But that's become kind of opportunities for other places that aren't the traditional powerhouses, that if you have available power, somebody's going to come knocking at your door to drop a data center in your backyard.
I think the general belief is that we always say that today's infrastructure can't handle the technological needs of tomorrow. I don't think that's ever been more true than it is today. With our aging infrastructure, we cannot support or sustain the amount we're going to need for this continued growth.
Clearly, you lead a team within Graybar of strategic account managers. Describe for people, because to me, that's something that I've seen over the years. I didn't appreciate early on, but as I've gone through my career, the projects that work best have very strong distribution participation. So if you could take a second, just explain the value of what your team does, and the value to the customer more so than the vendors.
Yeah, I'll tell you with my team. So we actually approach from two different directions. Some of our SAMs, our strategic account managers, they are tasked with building relationships within certain accounts that are, owner operators of these data centers, whether they're multi-tenant or hyperscalers. Some of the other SAMs have the responsibility of building relationships within the integrator accounts that we have assigned to them as they've grown within the space. So for the owner operators, whether they're multi-tenant or hyperscalers, it's to help bring the latest technology to them from what we're seeing from the manufacturers, such as a Leviton. We're looking for things that will save them time, save them money, not necessarily from a lower cost standpoint, but total cost of ownership. When you look at the integrator contractor side of things, we're looking to help those contractors grow by either building, sustaining relationship and reputation as a contractor of choice within the space. And we use all of the contacts that we get from calling on the owner operators to help those integrators grow within the space and make introductions to them so that they then become a trusted and reliable source of the knowledge to build these projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that I see with me, and part of Leviton. I think to a certain extent, any of my competitive peers, I'll say, a lot of times we have our horse blinders on, and we view the world through the lens of fiber cabling and connectivity or copper cabling, whatever the medium may be. But that's only a small portion of what the actual end customer has to deal with. And integrating all of that together can be a challenge for them. And it can be a challenge for us to understand, in all cases, how do we fit in? That's one of the values that I think that you can bring to whether it's an individual conversation, but more so kind of in a project execution framework.
Yeah, and quite honestly, the way I explained it to my SAMs when I moved into my new role was just level setting expectations across the board, and them understanding that my expectation is for them to be the nucleus of every deal that they work on. They're not an outlier that's pushing things around in order to just get tasks done. It's not tactical in nature. That's why we call them strategic account managers. They come up with the strategy with the customer so that we're helping the customer get to whatever their end goal is. So it's a much more consultative approach than just responding to an RFP or RFQ. It's actually helping to drive a better group of decisions that fit within the customer's strategic plan. And their strategic plan becomes part of ours.
Yeah, and do you see that changing, becoming more important? Is it still being figured out in this, as people are developing plans for AI clusters? Are they leaning on you more? Or are they still kind of feeling their way? What's your perception of that?
No, they're definitely leaning on us more. And I'll tell you that the most impactful way that they've leaned on us so far, just within the past few months, is inventory has all of a sudden become king again. If you have the material in stock to where an integrator or owner can get started on a project faster because You look at the life cycle of these things, and no one's making money until they're producing content. If you have something in stock that can at least get them started that staves off lead times, that's going to trump anything else that is related to the project. Time is truly of the essence, more so now than it's ever been.
I mean, a couple of weeks ago now, we just had our ribbon cutting. We essentially doubled the size of our fiber cable facility here. We're just outside of Raleigh. And that's a big piece, that what used to be an acceptable lead time even a year or two ago, not so much anymore. People want more and they want it faster. And having it now is a stronger sentiment than it's ever been.
In the same vein of you talking about having a ribbon cutting ceremony at one of your new factories, we're in the process of building a network of distribution centers to augment what we currently have on our 350 locations. These distribution centers will be directly tied to the data center vertical. We're going to have space to cut, stack, parallel, medium voltage wire in order to be able to get it to any site within that DC's region within 2 days. We're also going to stock a lot of the conveyance and metals for the low voltage side to make sure we can at least get a contractor started, get a project off the ground, so that our client will be able to generate revenue faster than they can today.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, we have a term we started using here a little bit ago, velocity. Part of it's just the service side of it, make it and ship it quicker. But part of it has to do with, you were talking about earlier, kind of product selection to lower the total cost of ownership, with an eye towards allowing people to get an installation done more quickly provides a lot of value. Because at the end of the day, especially in these AI or machine learning networks, they want to turn them on. They're dropping $1 billion into some equipment. They want to start seeing the returns on that as soon as they can.
Exactly. And from our standpoint, that's where we best leverage our services to be able to help facilitate that. Things, kitting, just-in-time deliveries, staging, storing materials on site or off site, depending on what's available to us. Things of that nature just help speed the process along, which takes speed bumps out of the path during the construction progress.
All right. So, shifting gears a little bit, last week we ran into each other in DC at the Data Center World conference. Anything stand out to you? What was new? What was interesting? What was important that came across your eyes and ears last week?
The biggest thing that stood out to me, one, was the sheer number of exhibitors and attendees. That was my first time attending Data Center World. I knew it was a big show. I did not understand the gravity of just how big of a show that it was. And given the fact that there's also a lot of educational opportunities there versus some of the other shows you go to where it truly is just a trade show and a meet and greet, I thought it was put together very well organized, and I look forward to us doubling the size of our booth for 2026 and just continue to grow with the show. One of the other things that I noticed that just solidified a train of thought that we all have, I'm sure we all have in our heads, the world is getting smaller, not just with technology, but the number of companies operating in this space. We've seen a lot of mergers, acquisitions. So it's interesting to me to see companies that you know of from the past that now have a buy so-and-so versus them being an independent as they were, 2 or 3 years ago. The companies with which we interact, that list is getting smaller and smaller by the day because there's so much convergence in the marketplace.
Yeah, I guess it's more than a couple of years now. We're closing in on 5, but BurkTech would have been one of those. I came out from the BurkTech side now. We're part of Leviton. So although it's a little blurry, but effectively we're one vendor to you now where we used to be two. So that's
Exactly.
kind of an example of that. Yeah, you're talking about the size of the show. I've been to Data Center World a number of times. I was surprised by the size of the show and the number of people this year. It was a huge increase versus last year even. I guess that's still another one of those effects of AI, a secondary effect, that there's so many people that are interested, whether it's educational opportunities or they're prospecting for business. Because one of the things I noticed, I'm going to say 3, 4, 5 people that came by our booth area are people that have some kind of related product, like they deal with fluid immersion for like aircraft maintenance. But hey, we've heard about this AI thing and they need immersion cooling. We're trying to find out if there's a place for us here. There's a lot of that happening too. A lot of, which to me kind of makes it exciting. I mean, this is a time to come up with a better mousetrap to solve somebody's problem. There's a lot of people trying to solve problems right now, which is interesting.
Yeah, and just to add to that just a little bit, just to I guess better illustrate your point, I only spent probably 10% of my time there in our booth, just because we did have quite a few people there, and I felt my time was better served meeting with some of our core manufacturer partners and some of our core customers that were in attendance. But even my short time at our booth, there were so many people who were representative of the manufacturing community that we currently don't interact with. They were all approaching, trying to find out, how can I do business through Graybar? How can I use you as my distribution channel?
Yeah, I mean, that's again, certainly an interesting time to be in it. To a certain extent, I've said it a number of times over the past year or so, people want to go on, develop best practices or latch on to best practices. This whole construction of AI clusters is so new. I don't think anybody's really figured out what is the best practice yet. They're still trying the 57 flavors to zero it down. That goes all the way from, how people are sourcing materials all the way to standards activity. And, I participate in the TIA standards, and that's a common conversation is, all right, how do we, not where do we begin, but how do we agree on what can be standardized, what should be standardized, like who drives that conversation? It's so early. It's exciting to be part of something that, is happening in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wake up more excited every day, knowing that sometime between the last 24 hours, technology has evolved. And there's going to be, as you said, a better mousetrap just about every day. I came back from Data Center World on Friday, and on Monday, I hosted my monthly standing call with my team. And there were, I think, 30-ish attendees on that call. And one of the things I told them, key takeaways for me from Data Center World is, one, it's clear that everyone in attendance is looking to carve out their niche. And two, it's very clear that we're building the plane as we fly it.
Yeah, which is nice as an analogy. The real deal probably isn't as much fun.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. Anything else? Like, what comes to mind when you're thinking about kind of the opportunities in front of us related to the AI business?
For me, it's I don't know. Some people may say it's an eternal struggle. For me, it's of course the not wanting to help build Skynet, for one, but really taking stock of what AI is going to do for civilization. When I think about the different verticals that it's going to interact with and it's going to help us navigate things, I think about the financial markets, where AI is going to help with predictive analysis. It's going to help hopefully increase profitability during trades, between being able to predict what the market's going to do, being able to predict what the economy is going to do. That is only going to bolster the financial business. And then I think about healthcare, and I think about quality of life, and I think about how AI is going to be able to take time out of diagnoses, hopefully come up with better treatment plans than what we have in place today. So I think about how impactful it's going to be and how lucky I am to have a front row seat to it. And I think that's why I get up every day excited to do this job and excited to lead a team of professionals that take this very seriously and quite honestly have built their careers on it.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective because, yeah, I think about, whenever these big kind of technology leaps, the actual applications are kind of beyond comprehension initially, because people don't even know what they do. This is going to be or should be, kind of the coolest and best tool anybody's ever used. But if you don't have it, you don't have it in your hands, you don't know how to use it yet. And people will figure it out. It's like when the telephone came out, essentially. If you look at the early reports when people talked about the phone, the use cases were kind of inane almost. That it never occurred to people when they were developing the phone that people might just pick up a phone and call somebody to say hello. Like that was outside of their scope of like, why would anybody ever do that? But that became the norm, and now today nobody uses a phone anymore. That's all digital.
Yeah.
But that's the way technology rolls.
Well, and no one talks on the phone anymore, at least the younger generation. And I'm not being generationist. I have quite a few kids, and my kids span from 23 to 13. And my 23 and my 22-year-old, they still pick up a phone and call. My 18, 16, 14, and 13-year-olds, it's all text or Snapchat or Instagram. It's not rare that I have to remind my kids, you can talk on those things too.
So that's another thing where technology shifts where you make your money. That's
Exactly.
not where those guys make their money anymore. Not the kids now. I'm talking about the characters. They don't care if you talk anymore.
Exactly. Voice calls are a thing of the past.
No. Yeah. All right. I appreciate your time. Appreciate your input. Good luck with the team going forward, and looking forward to your massive new booth next year at Data Center World.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. It's definitely been my pleasure. It was great to actually meet you in person at Data Center World last week.
Ditto.
Always good to put a face with a name, or in this case, a voice. But I just want to say thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute blast, and I look forward to. Oh, by the way, I did subscribe to the podcast series last week, so just wanted to let you
There
know.
we go.
I took care of that. So
I think you're a millionth subscriber. I think you win a prize.
sweet, love it. My lucky day.
All right.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Thanks, David.
Beyond Bandwidth is a podcast series produced by Leviton Network Solutions. For more information on the topics we talked about today, as well as other enterprise or data center network infrastructure content, or to check out all available episodes of Beyond Bandwidth, visit us on the web at leviton.com/beyondbandwidth, or wherever you normally listen to podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd appreciate you leaving an honest review in your podcast application. Along with word of mouth, leaving a review will help others find our show. I'm Roy Chamberlain, and this was Beyond Bandwidth. Until next time.